Hello, welcome to Win Some Loosemore. My name is Dieter. You join me for the second of a couple of lists that I was making about two-player gaming. Now, the most common question that we get asked, because we play predominantly two-player by other couples or friends that we have, is what games are good for two players. So I looked last week at games that are designed for two players only and kind of my top list of those. That was an easier list to make because we have quite a few, we've played quite a few, because I say we're predominantly two players, and so that was pretty much just a case of going through my top games and just picking out the ones that were for two players only. So that was the order nicely created. Now today I'm doing it slightly differently. I'm taking games that are designed for different player counts, some 1 to however many players, some 2 to like 8 players, and these are games either that I think are best at 2 or are equally good whatever player count that you have. So there'll be some games that you might expect me to put on a top 10 list, like Scythe, which is my #1 game. Not on this list. It works at 2. We enjoyed it at 2. I just think it's better at 3 and 4. 5's too many. But so it's that kind of thing. I'm weighing up not only how well does it work as two-player, but also how much do I enjoy the game. So it's not necessarily my #1 I think is the best game on this list for a two-player experience. #1 on my list is probably the best game that I think qualifies for this list. So to qualify for the list, it has to be a game that I think it works really well at two players. And then after that, it's near enough. Some changes, but near enough my order of preference. I don't own all of these games, so I have most of the boxes in front of me, so I'll show you the ones that I have as we go along. Most of these, in fact, all but one. Yeah, there's one I can't show you anything of, so I'll see if I can find a picture and show you a couple of those from when we used to own it. But we'll come to that. So number 10, nice and easy, nice and simple start. Ticket to Ride New York. This is designed for 2 to 4 players, but is one of the newer, smaller maps. They've done New York and London now. I may have made up, or I may have heard they're doing Tokyo next. Might have made that up. I don't know where I've got that from. Never mind. But they're doing cities now. Ticket to Ride is a very popular series of games that have typically done continents or countries, these big games for 2 to 4 players. And I personally, there's a couple of them designed for smaller groups, but generally the main ones, Ticket to Ride Europe, Ticket to Ride USA, I don't think are great at 2. They're not bad. They're good fun games. But there's very big maps, so you don't get the level of interaction and tension that you want. But Ticket to Ride New York, excellent game, much smaller map, works in 4. We've done it. Done it in all the player counts a good number of times, but I just think 2 for a sit down, great experience of you're drafting your cards and then laying your sets. It's just set collection thing, route building, very simple game, but it's about 10-15 minutes long at 2 player. New York is my favorite of these, of the couple that have come out so far. I prefer the landmark system to the zone system of London. They've done it kind of like tube map zones, but no, it's more confusing for me, but that may be just because I'm used to this. But New York, excellent game. Ticket to Ride New York. Number 10, brilliant at 2. Number 9, designed for 1 to 8 players, Magic Maze. And this is one of the ones that kind of treads the line a little bit, because I think this is brilliant at 2 to 4. More than that, and I imagine, well, I've done more than that. It gets really confusing. It's really hard to keep track of who's got what. 6 was okay. Solo's a nightmare because you have to do all the actions in order. That's a different thing. But 2 to 4 doesn't matter. Brilliant. You're each controlling a direction. You're not controlling any of the 4 pieces. You control a direction, or in 2 player you control 2 of the directions, north, south, east or west. And then a couple of the powers. You are in real time silently having to work together to get these people out to, they're robbing a shopping mall. I don't know, strange theme, but it's typical fantasy characters robbing a shopping mall. So you're getting the barbarian to go steal an axe, the wizard to go steal an orb or something, those kinds of things. It's just very silly, very fun, very fast. It's the kind of game that if you sit down with new people, you play once and then start to play. So you play once because it's about 5 minutes long if you're no good at turning the timer. It says 15, it's not. 5 minutes, you suck, and then you realise, and then everybody at the table goes, oh, okay, that's what we're trying to do. Okay, let's set it up, let's do it again. Because you've got to reveal the tiles, you've got to find your way around this map, and then get back, all this stuff. Frantic, fast, fun, and alliteration to boot. Magic Maze, excellent with 2, 3, or 4. We've enjoyed this a lot. First one I can't show you, but I've done a why I like, so any of those will appear in the screen for you to see. This is Quadropolis. Again, sits in that it's probably equally good in all. 4 might be pushing it a little bit just in terms of time. But they managed to scale it really well. Same company as Ticket to Ride, it's Days of Wonder, and they're really good generally at scaling games. Another one I toyed for the list was Small World, even though 2 is probably its weakest, that's why it's not here. But they provide different ways of playing for different player counts. In Small World, they give you different sides of the board to play with. In Quadropolis, the tiles are numbered, the spaces on the drafting board are numbered, and so you only put out as many tiles as go in those spaces. If it's got the 2 on it, you put it on the 2s. If it's got a 3 on it and you're playing 3-player, you put it on the 2s and 3s. 4-player, 2, 3, 4. Simple. And so it shrinks the game down, so it makes it like other people are there and have taken stuff, but without a dummy player, which is frustrating and has stopped a couple of other games going on this list. It just shrinks the game down, so it makes it appropriate for 2 players. Very simple pattern building, drafting style, tile laying, city building game. But great pieces, great components, good fun. Check out the why I like. That's the number 8 for this list, Quadropolis. Now, a 1 to 5 player game, but I think is my favourite at 2, not necessarily best, but my favourite, Fuse. Again, a real-time game, interesting. But this is 10 minutes only. You are playing against a timer that's counting down and talking to you, and if you put the right settings on it, taunting you as you go, trying to roll dice to defuse bombs. Now in more than 2 players, you're pulling as many dice from the bag as there are players, rolling them, and then taking 1 each, and if you can't take it, it screws it all up and all that stuff. In 2-player, you draw 4 from the bag, roll them, and take 2 each, so you have a little bit of mitigation on the dice. It just makes it slightly easier. Sure, I'm okay with it being slightly easier, but still fast, still tense. We can only play this kind of once, maximum twice in a row, otherwise we get too stressed and get too angry with each other, which isn't great and isn't the point of games, but we have a great time with this. 2-player, for me, is the best. That's Fuse, number 7. Number 6, I can't show you, I'm afraid. This is a game we used to own a long time ago, so there's not even a video on this. This is a game called Alien Artifacts. This is a game that's designed for 2 to 4, but because the way it works in the way you're drafting the cards, it's a space themed thing, and the way combat works, there's like a dummy alien deck that you can fight against, or there's the opponents. And in more than 2 players, people can either pick on people, or it just didn't feel as balanced. It wasn't as fun. I enjoyed, and it was long. 4-player would have been way too long. For the length it was, 2-player was great. You get cards into your kind of construction area on one side of your player board, and then you pay things and symbols as you go to put them into your built area, and then they do stuff. Planets, technologies, and ships. So the ships can fight, go and explore, fight other people. The planets you can mine for resources and those kind of things, and the technologies allow you to manipulate all of those things in a different way, or to get different symbols, different powers and whatnot. But yeah, it's been quite a while actually, but I remember it very fondly, and 2, as I say, was my favourite for that. A great production from Portal Games. It's a similar game to another family of games from Portal, Imperial Settlers. They've done a few that have that, and 51st State, where they have that central player board. Stuff starts on the left, and that's where you draft it to, and then you build it and put it on the other side to build these combos and things. But Alien Artifacts, it's relatively cheap. I would recommend you pick it up. For games that work best at 2, that's number 6. Number 5, an older game. Not to us, relatively new for us, only a few months. Castles of Burgundy. We've played this a few times at 2, and I've played it once at 4. I need to try 3, so this isn't a definitive list again. All of this is opinion. All of this is based only on my experience. I haven't played all of the games. There are so many. But it's a 2 to 4 player. 4 was good, but there was a lot of everybody else taking turns, which they should. That's how it works. But in 2 player, like Quadrople, you just put fewer tiles out and it tells you which spots to put them in. So it shrinks the game down, so it just makes it faster. And because it's what some people call multiplayer solitaire, so everybody's doing their own thing. I'm building my city or my set of castles in my area. You're doing all your things. I can't go attack you. There's no direct conflict like that. It's more of a conflict for the draft, for the tiles that we're picking to go in our place. So because of that, it doesn't really matter on the player count. And so a shorter time helps me feel more engaged, helps me enjoy it much more. And the core dice mechanism is great. This is a true Euro, truly dry, truly themeless, basically. And the design, I mean, the visual design, it's not pretty. But the mechanics are great. You just roll your 2 dice at the beginning. So there is randomness, but then the 2 numbers are your action choices. And within that, you've got a good range of choice. So it's lots of manipulation. You've got workers to alter the number on your dice. There's good manipulation, good mitigation, and a really good puzzle in placing out all the tiles, all those kinds of things that make this a top game for so many people with good reason. And I think best at 2. So far, from my experience. Castles of Burgundy, number 5. Number 4, the newest game on this list, Tapestry. Limited experience, but excellent experience. So we've only played this 4 or 5 times. I've played it solo once, I've played it 4 player and 2 player. Again, need to try 3 and 5, it goes up to 5. Oh, 4, sorry. Given that I was the only person that had played it before, it took us 2.5 hours, nearly 3. And it says it's supposed to take 90 to 120 minutes out for 5 player. I don't know about that. Expect 3 hours for a 5 player game. But so simple, so approachable, and they've done the similar thing to what I mentioned before with Small World, even though it's not on the list, is that there's a different side of the board. For 4 to 5 players, there's one side of the board where there's more starting positions, different islands, all those things. But in 2 to 3, you use a much smaller version of the board. It's so simple. And I really enjoyed it when Kirsty and I have played, and discovering the tapestry cards to affect your game, discovering how all of the different civilizations work. There's so much to explore and discover within the game. All the while you're just doing this incredibly simple thing of you either move up on one track or do one of your 5 incomes. It's an incredibly simple game in function. Is that what I mean? In physical action, I suppose. And that's what this company does. This designer, Jamie Stegmaier, does this so incredibly well. It's why Scythe is my number 1 game. What you are physically doing, what your choice is on your turn, what you're doing, is so incredibly simple. In Scythe, you just move your marker onto one of the 4 actions. That's it. In this, you either move up one of the 4 tracks or do an income turn. That's it. But the depth of why you do all those things and how they help you do your overall strategy, and the joy of this having so many different points. It's just out of frame, but it's right there, so that's why I'm referencing that. Figure out how to leverage your civilization whilst seeing what everyone else is doing, and maybe going around on the board and conquering and taking over other people's stuff, or discovering new islands and getting points that way. It's just a great, almost free-for-all with what you're doing, because the choice is so vast, because it's so incredibly simple as to what you're doing. Difficult to explain. We'll do more on this at a later point. A beautiful, beautiful game. Tapestry, excellent at 2. A lot of people say best at 3. I haven't tried 3, so maybe disregard this if I try that and correct myself in the future. But that's number 4, Tapestry from Stone My Games. Number 3, Sonar. Excellent 2-player game. excellent. This plays 2 to 4. I would more say 2 or 4. You can play 2 versus 1. But basically there are 2 roles for each side. You're both commanding submarines trying to track down the other people. Sounds like battleships, except it's not. This is a dry white marker game where you are moving, or you're not calling out locations. You physically have to mark your path at the same time. So that's the captain's role, is to decide where you're going. At the same time, there's a radio engineer who's then marking out where they think the other people are going, because they announce their direction just as you announce yours. I'm going north. Okay, so you mark north, but you have this like clear sheet over the map so you can move around the path to try and eliminate where you are. So this massive cat and mouse, and it works really well at 4. We've done this a number of times with a number of different couples or game groups or things where we've done 2 on 2. One person's the captain, one person's the radio engineer, and it's fun. But for multiplayer, I'd say go up to 6 players if you can, 6 to 8 players, and get Captain Sonar, which is a real-time, much bigger, stressful version, which is an incredible kind of fun. This is a much more calm, calculated tension. And in one-on-one, I think that plays out at an even a higher level, that tension. Because it's all on you and it's all on them, and you're trying to desperately outwit the other person, and when do you go silent to do a couple of sneaky moves for them to have to figure out where you are again, all that kind of stuff. Excellent fun. And yeah, I think best at 2, great at 4, but even better at 2. Number 3. Now, number 2 could really be any number of entries in this family of games. This is our favourite, Carcassonne the City. Carcassonne works well as a 2-player game, it really does. It's just back and forth. You take tiles and you together are building this map, but you're kind of manipulating it to your benefit whilst they're trying to manipulate it to their benefit, placing your little meeples down to get the most out of the kind of landscape that you're creating. This adds the extra layer that it's not like the wide open world. You're building a city, so there are buildings, and then after the first round there you start building walls and city gates and turrets and like physical little wooden pieces to enclose the city that you're creating, and so that tension then goes up even more. And again, love it at 3 and 4. We've played it a number of times with a number of different people, but at 2, just the sensation of scoring so many points because no one's stealing them from you, basically. And so you, in a 4-player game, I think, you know, if you go round the score track once and a bit, you're doing well. In our first 2-player game, I think we went round like 3 or 4 times each. We're on like 200 points odd. And that's just an exciting sensation. It shouldn't be, because it's relative, but it's just so much fun and just such a simple mechanism, very popular for a good reason. This is our favourite one. I don't know if base Carcassonne would be as high on this list for me, but Carcassonne the City, with the added things that it gives you, puts it so high on my list for physical and visual charm on the table with all the pieces, you watching it being built, and just the simplicity of the core mechanic. You take the top tile, you place it somewhere, you maybe place a worker to try and score things later on. Excellent. Carcassonne, in this case Carcassonne the City, my number 1 game to play with 2 people, even though it's not specifically a 2-player game. I need to explain this one a little bit for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it doesn't yet exist in general retail. They are coming out with a retail version, that's why I felt comfortable putting it on this list. Secondly, this isn't necessarily the best 2-player experience on the list. This is, for me, my favourite game that is on this list, that within its player count I think is best at 2. So it's not quite the best 2-player game on this list, it's the best game on this list as far as I'm concerned. Never mind, I'll stop apologising for my choices. The Seventh Continent. Oh boy, my number 3 game of all time. Excellent. Cooperative, adventure, story, narrative, map, discovering, game with so much content. It's unbelievable. They're stripping a lot of that back for the retail version. This was a couple of Kickstarters over the last few years, massive Kickstarters, very successful, because the production costs just far outweigh what any retail line that they can manage, which is fair enough. There is so much going on in terms of pieces and cards, and yeah, it just seems like a huge feat that they've done this at all. They're doing a stripped back version with a couple of the stories in for the retail version, so there's a few of the expansions you can get which will be compatible with that. So that's been really good that it's become more widely available, because this is an excellent adventure style game. Now, I enjoy playing this solo, I do, and in terms of the mechanics and how they work out, yeah, it's probably better at solo, but I can't get. I love solo gaming. That we've got a few games that are only for one player, and I enjoy that kind of thing. But there's just something about, particularly with exploration, doing it with somebody else, making those decisions together, being at fault at times when, you know, the flip of a card doesn't go your way and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, that was my idea, when, you know, it's just a flip of a card, you didn't do anything wrong. But there's just that shared experience with this kind of thing. And as I say, there's so much discovery in this game that's part of it. You're trying to find the route for these curses, trying to find ways to lift them from you as players. And I've done a good amount of it solo, but there's just nothing like doing it with somebody else. For me, there's nothing quite like doing it with Kirsty, because it's the person I spend most time with, and so we build that kind of language and how we make decisions together, and it just plays itself out in a game, and it's great. There's a lot of these cooperative games that we've played, Pandemics and Thunderbirds and those kind of things, where it's great fun to do the cooperative thing, but it tends to be somebody takes over and makes all the decisions, or it's fine, it's a good game, but we'd kind of go, yeah, I kind of want to solve that puzzle on my own. This, I don't have that. I never have that. Because it's not a set of mechanisms, it's not, well, we need to go here and go here and go here to do this, this and this, therefore what's the most strategic plan? This is, I don't know what's out there. We need to stick together, or maybe we need to dare going separate ways and discovering different things, and then we need to come back, and then we need to share our resources so that we can survive. And oh no, what did you discover over there? Oh no, I found that thing over here. There's just something about doing it with other people, and 2 people best. It would be fine at 3 and 4, but long and too much discussion. I like that intimate conversation with just one other person. So an excellent game. Can't wait for it to be more widely available so more people get to enjoy this system. They're coming out with new games with the similar system as well, so look out for those when they appear. But that's the 7th Continent, my number 1 game that works well at 2 players. So that's it. If you've ever asked us that question, you've ever asked anyone else that question, that's my suggestion. Kirsty would agree with some of these and not others. That's okay. That's the joy of putting out opinions. So do put your opinions in the comments. Give your suggestions for games that you think work well. Yeah. That's been the list, so thank you very much for watching. Do stay updated with what we're doing by subscribing to this channel and hitting the bell icon. Stay updated with the videos, or follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, those things. Search Win Some Loosemore, you will find us. I will see you again very soon with whatever the next video is. I've been Dieter for Win Some Loosemore. Thank you very much. Goodbye.